right, today we are diving deep into a seriously chilling piece of local folklore, a story that has literally kept an entire community awake at night. We're breaking down the legend of the ghost of the Desolate Well. It's this wild, terrifying narrative where grief, vengeance, and honestly, pure human arrogance all crash into each other. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's unravel what actually went down in the village of Chandpur. Son, don't go near that well at night. That place is cursed. Right off the bat, that warning establishes the absolute, unspoken rule of the village. This isn't just a friendly suggestion from village elder Dada Karim, it's a rigid, non-negotiable boundary. And you know how folklore works, right? A warning like this is the ultimate test. It immediately hooks us because we absolutely know someone is going to break that rule. It sets the stakes perfectly. The well isn't just a physical spot on a map, it's a quarantine zone of trauma. So picture the setting. We're in Chandpur village. Like almost every hometown, it has that one spot everyone totally avoids. Think small, silent mud houses and quiet streets. By day, it's a simple, unassuming, safe place. But at the very edge of the village sits this old, isolated well. The whole vibe relies heavily on contrast. During the day, no problem. But the moment the sun sets, the geography itself seems to shift. The villagers physically withdraw into their homes. That well basically becomes a black hole at the edge of their world, a space entirely surrendered to the dark after twilight.
Now, every great breakdown needs a catalyst, and here's ours. The classic clash between generational wisdom and modern skepticism. On one side, we have Dada Karim. He represents tradition and a healthy respect for the unseen, warning that not everything is visible to the eyes. On the flip side is our protagonist, Ali. He's a young guy visiting from the city. He's arrogant, totally dismissive, and relies solely on modern logic. He literally asks, "Where are ghosts in today's world?" I mean, those are the famous last words of basically every horror movie protagonist ever. This arrogance right here is the inciting incident. Ali decides he's going to strut right up to that well to prove the locals wrong.
Let's track his exact timeline here. It is exactly midnight. The entire village is fast asleep as Ollie sneaks out with nothing but a flashlight. He thinks he's just taking a walk. Well, actually, scratch that. He's stepping right into a supernatural current. As he approaches the boundary of the well, the environment actually starts reacting to his presence. The wind turns icy cold. The trees begin to violently shake. And then, cutting through the rushing wind, he hears it. The distinct, sorrowful sound of a woman crying. So let's look at the physical reality of the well itself when Ollie finally stands right in front of it. The structure is broken down, completely crumbling. He shines his flashlight down into it, but the light is just swallowed whole by this absolute impenetrable darkness. It's a total void. And then, out of that blackness, something that shatters all his logic. A stark, pale white hand slowly creeps its way up the inner stone wall. The tension here is just unbelievable. This entity isn't just magically appearing, it is physically, painfully climbing out of its prison. And then comes the voice. "Save me." This right here is a masterclass in psychological manipulation. The entity doesn't start off with some monstrous roar or a threat. She starts with a desperate plea for help. Her voice is so agonizing and so full of pain that Ali's innate human empathy actually overrides his terror for just a second. He actually takes a step closer to the edge. The trap is sprung, not through violence, but through a completely fabricated cry for salvation. But any empathy he felt evaporates the second she fully emerges. She is pure nightmare fuel. This is not some tragic, ethereal, see-through ghost. She is gruesome. Long, unkempt hair, a face completely drenched in blood, and her eyes, they are entirely white, totally devoid of pupils or any trace of humanity. The intense contrast between her vulnerable plea and her horrifying, violent appearance is what completely freezes Ollie in his tracks. His city boy logic is officially shattered. She looks right dead at him and reveals her motive. "They killed me." Wow. This single line unlocks the incredibly dark history of Chandpur village. It transforms this from a random monster encounter into a heavy story of tragic vengeance. The entity was a victim. She suffered a brutal, unjust death at the hands of the villagers, and she was thrown into this exact well to be forgotten. This detail anchors the entire folklore. This haunting isn't random, it is a highly localized, eternal monument to an unsolved murder. And just as Ollie is trying to process this horrific history, the dynamic shifts instantly. She looks at him and says, "Today, you will stay with me too." The sorrow just vanishes, completely replaced by a direct, inescapable threat. This is the exact moment the trap slams shut. She isn't looking for a savior anymore, she's looking for company in her torment. The danger suddenly spikes off the charts, and Ollie realizes his modern skepticism has literally just cost him his life. What happens next is a total breakdown of physical reality. Ollie screams. He bolts. He runs as fast as he can toward the safety of the village. But the village, it's just not the same anymore. Reality is warping. The streets are literally rearranging themselves around him. It doesn't matter how fast he sprints or what alleyway he ducks into, every single path loops identically straight back to that desolate well. He is completely trapped in this dizzying, spatial nightmare designed to exhaust him. And as he runs with his lungs absolutely burning, he looks back and realizes the sheer hopelessness of it all. The entity isn't running. She is effortlessly floating through the air, laughing this hollow, chilling laugh. Her feet never even touch the ground. It's such a stark contrast. You have Ollie's desperate, sweaty human exertion versus her effortless, supernatural pursuit. You simply cannot outrun something that doesn't obey the laws of physics. She mocks his attempts to escape, her voice echoing through the night. Just like they didn't spare me, you can't leave either. This line confirms exactly why Ollie is being targeted. The entity is enforcing a proxy punishment. It doesn't even matter that Ollie wasn't born when she was murdered. He belongs to the village, he knowingly crossed into her domain, and so he's the one who has to pay the debt for their collective guilt. The logic of vengeance in this folklore is completely blind and absolute. Finally, physical exhaustion takes over. His legs just give out and he collapses hard onto the dirt. And in that precise moment, his flashlight flickers. And it dies. Just let that sink in for a second. The very last piece of modern technology he had, his one and only defense against the unknown, is just gone. He's instantly plunged into total, suffocating darkness. He's lost every single advantage he thought he had when he confidently walked out of his house. Then, in the pitch black, the horror gets incredibly intimate. He feels a freezing breath on his neck. A voice whispers directly into his ear, "Don't look back." The entity has closed the distance completely. She is right there, right behind him. This command is a brilliant psychological torture device. It completely strips away his agency and forces him to sit there in paralyzed anticipation of whatever is standing just over his shoulder. But as we all know, human curiosity is our absolute greatest weakness. It's a classic horror trope for a reason, because it's universally true. Despite the explicit warning, despite knowing the absolute terror that awaits him, Allie just cannot stop himself. He slowly turns his head, and there she is, the bloody face, the white eyes, hovering mere inches from his own. The suspense officially breaks into pure face-to-face terror. The physical attack finally begins. Her long, ice-cold fingers wrap tightly right around his throat, but she doesn't kill him instantly. Instead, she begins to drag him slowly and deliberately back across the dirt toward the open mouth of the well. And honestly, the most chilling detail here, Ollie is screaming for help with whatever tiny bit of breath he has left, but the entire village sleeps on in absolute unbroken silence. His skepticism isolated him, and now he is entirely alone in what feels like his final moments. But right at the absolute precipice of salvation arrives. The sudden, incredibly powerful echo of the Fajr Azan, the morning call to prayer, rings out from the local mosque. In this folklore, this spiritual intervention is the ultimate, definitive countermeasure. The sound literally physically harms the entity. She lets out a piercing scream, releases her death grip, and vanishes into thin air like smoke. The approaching dawn and that spiritual call completely shatter the dark physics of the night. The next morning, the village wakes up to find the arrogant city boy lying unconscious right beside the cursed well. But the aftermath is severe. When they finally wake Allie up, his hair has turned entirely white from sheer shock. His eyes are wide open, locked in an expression of intense, permanent dread. This is the undeniable physical proof of his encounter. Sure, he survived, but the massive psychological and physical toll absolutely proves that Dada Karim's warnings were 100% real. And survival, it turns out, is highly subjective. Ollie is physically back in his safe home, but his mind? His mind is completely broken. He wakes up screaming in the dark. He constantly repeats this haunting phrase to the terrified villagers, "She calls me. Every night. She calls me." This reveals the deep, lingering trauma of the event. The Fajr Azan might have saved his physical body, but the entity had successfully anchored herself deep into his mind. The curse was not even close to being broken.
Which brings us to a really crucial, terrifying question. Based on everything we just looked at, did Ali really escape the well that night? Or did only his physical body leave, while his spirit remained trapped down there with her in the dark? We're left balancing right on this razor edge of psychological horror.
The timeline jumps forward a few months to give us our incredibly bleak epilogue. One night, under the cover of darkness, Ali simply vanishes. He walks right out of his house and disappears. The entire village mobilizes. They scour absolutely every inch of Chandpur, searching the fields, the homes, the surrounding areas. But the result is absolute. Ali is never found again. The entity's promise, "You will stay with me," wasn't defeated at all. It was merely delayed.
And that leads us to the haunting conclusion of the legend as it stands today. The villagers obviously still don't go anywhere near the Desolate Well at night, but now it isn't just the cries of a wronged woman they hear. No, the wind now carries the terrified, echoing screams of a young man. The cycle of horror is totally complete. Ali, the ultimate skeptic, has become a permanent part of the very ghost story he tried so hard to disprove. It's a seriously chilling reminder that in the world of folklore, some lines are simply not meant to be crossed. Keep questioning the dark, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.